Good morning everybody, this is Johnny S with another R6 vlog. Another morning daily routine, driving to work. In today's video I think we're going to talk a little bit more about the bike that I'm on. Yesterday I was a little bit in a rush, we're running out of time, and I didn't mention many things about my actual bike that I'm currently driving. Mentioned a lot of things about my past bikes and everything, and then just a few details about my actually current bike. So today I think we're going to take the time and we're going to talk a little bit more about the Yamaha R6 and just give a little bit of a comparison, and perhaps compare it to a couple of other bikes in case, you know, people were curious and wanted to get this bike. So we might answer questions such as, you know, why get this bike over another 600, why get a 600 over 1000 SuperSport. In general, we're going to be focusing on the SuperSport class. So yesterday we mentioned a lot of different other classes. Today, you know, we're going to be focused on that. So one of the key point elements on this bike, and this is you know, depending on your opinion, this is subjective to everybody, is the looks. So if you ask me, I will say first of all, get a bike that you like, that you love to look at. You know, if you don't like your bike, then it doesn't matter if it's the fastest bike in the world, you're not going to enjoy it as much as you think. Personally, the Yamaha R6 is looks wise, at least when I got it and when it first came out, it was the first bike design wise which was, you know, the best in its class. I did like second best the Kawasaki, the Ninja 636. It was quite good, but not, you know, as good as this, let's say. The Suzuki, not really. I did not like that whole single light at the front. It was kind of weird to me. Okay, whatever. So, you know, yeah, so first I would say looks. Pick something that you like. For me, this bike was and is perfect. This is also why I mentioned previously that I will not change the exhaust on it. I will not change the looks. I will not change nothing on it. You know what I mean? A lot of people have bought this bike and they have commented, what an ugly exhaust, I can't wait to get my hands on a new slip-on. That's not the case for me. This one here for me is perfect. So that's step number one. Get a bike that you like. Then you can go to the technical aspects. You don't have to go crazy reading statistics and you know, what's this one like, what's that one like, what's like. These are all, I will put it in a different way, all these bikes are super sports, and all these bikes are competitive super sports. So you're not going to get like a shitty bike in comparison to something else, as long as you're talking about within the same, how can I say, similar release date. So if you're comparing a 2004 bike with a 2008 bike, obviously you're going to get different technologies. But as far as you're comparing similar year release bikes, then the companies are competitive. One bike might be a little bit better in some areas, another bike might be a little bit better in some other areas, but in general, you're going to have a specific, let's say, the level of performance, and performance is one of the key elements of super sport bikes. So the specific bike, if I had to compare it with other ones, I will say it's one of the most how can I say, difficult to ride bikes. So if you're a person that comfort is number one, I will say don't go for an R6. I know that it might sound counterintuitive, but you know, if comfort is what you're aiming about, then the R6 is quite a bit uncomfortable, let's say. especially compared to some other ones. I've sat on many different bikes, I've driven a few. Comparison wise, if you ask me what's the most comfortable bike, I would say a Suzuki GSXR 600, similar year as these, are the most comfortable ones. They have the better, a lower riding position. The seat is quite narrower, which means it gives you more you know, foot room. You're able to touch the floor better, which gives you more stability, and that actually increases your comfort and your enjoyment on the bike as well. So that's the, I'm not trying to put down user-friendly and comfortability on a bike. It's important, you know what I mean? If you're going to be on a bike and you're going to have you're going to be in a pain just so you can have the most performance and amazing bike, yeah, okay, whatever, you're not going to enjoy it. You're not doing it for your friends, you're not doing it for, to impress someone, you're doing it for yourself. Because when I got this bike, I had sat on a few of them, I realized that the GSXR was the most comfortable one. After the GSXR, second most comfortable, I will say it was the Ninja, which is the bike that my brother got quite some time after that. Like, first I got my Yamaha R6, then my brother got a Ducati Monster, which I was driving around, and then after some while, you know, I gave my Yamaha R6 to him. He really liked it. My brother is a little bit taller, so it was easier for him as well. But you know, he really liked the sorry, I can't say. He really liked the Ninja. The Kawasaki Ninja has got a longer wheelbase. That also plays a role in bikes in Supersport. Yamaha R6 has one of the smallest wheelbases, which means that the distance between the front wheel and the back wheel is quite short comparison to other bikes. So if you like to think about it, you can say that the Yamaha R6 is one of the shorter bikes, and the Kawasaki Ninja is one of the longer bikes. That you know, how does that affect you? The shorter the wheelbase, the more playful the bike is, so you can lean the bike over quicker. It's got a shorter wheelbase, but usually mid-turn a longer wheelbase means more stability, but you're sacrificing turning capabilities, because the longer the wheelbase, the less turnative it is, let's say. So that's another thing to consider. Power wise, I did mention a little bit yesterday, it's got 130, but I will say to keep it you know, to keep it in general something which is how can I say, because some people will argue it's not 130, it's 129, it's 127. Yeah, okay, client mine. I don't go into a lot of silly, I consider this to be a ridiculous sort of comparison. My bike's got 123 horsepower, your one's got 126. Oh, you're nothing. Like, no, they're all the same power, and it's got horsepower is another thing that it doesn't mean anything, you know what I mean? Horsepower is the application of your power. It's the application of your power across the different rev range, on what rev range it is. This bike, feeling wise, if you had to compare it with other Supersports, if you had to compare it with other Supersports, this bike has got less power on the low end, so it means on low revs it's not as jumpy, let's say, as other ones. Especially comparing it to my brothers, the Ninja, which I drove quite a few. sorry. Obviously my brother's was a 636, so this is a 599cc bike, and you might think that that does not play a role. It does play a role, and you can kind of tell straight away, you know, that it was a little bit more kick coming straight off from the line. This bike does not have. So one of the weak points of the R6 is, as you can see, let me just clean this, the weather in Greece at the moment is very nice and hot, but simultaneously we got a lot of dust. So if you can see the speedometer, the red line starts at 17,500 and it's 20,000 number. You will never see a speedometer as high as this. 20,000, 17 to 20,000 red line. That's crazy. So this is a high revving bike, which means also sound wise it's crazy, and one of the reasons that I love it. Again, a lot of people will say this is not actual rev lines, and it's not the actual rev line, and it doesn't rev as high as that, and whatever. These are like details, you know what I mean? It might be true that the 17,000 RPMs indication might not be 17,000 RPMs might not be exactly 17,000, it might be a little bit less. It might be 16, it might be 15. In any case, the feeling never changes. It's a bike that you have a lot of rev range to play around with. The first gear can easily carry you above 100 kilometers per hour, and it still has a lot more power. The power application of the bike is, I will say, between 12 and 14,000, around there. That's like when you so it's on the top of the on top of the speedometer. If you have a look, when you get to the vertical, around the vertical position of the speedometer, that's when the power kicks in. And when people take the bike to sorry, I'm still sick, I'm still taking antibiotics, and when people take the bike to the track, usually they try to ride it around that range, so from the top towards the red line section, because that's where the power is, and after that it kind of drops. So that is also something to do with how the bike behaves. If you have a SuperSport like my brother's, for example, you have a SuperSport bike like my brother's, and you're going to race from one light to the next, and the distance is kind of relatively short, my brother will beat my ass every time. It's got nothing to do, it's got less horsepower than my one, but its application of the horsepower is different. There's less revs. I think the top power on the Kawasaki is around on 11,000, so it's going to kick in much faster, it's going to accelerate much faster. It's got those extra little 440cc, which is going to give it a little bit of a grunt. So you cannot say it's a little bit less than horsepower. No. Anyway, nevertheless, to give credit where credit is due, Yamaha, on 2006, when this bike came out, they had the top horsepower produced bike. So if you looked at purely at the statistics, horsepower, this was the top bike. And if you ask me how much was this power, to keep it in general and so you can have an idea, I will say it's around 110 horsepower on the wheel. Some people will count the horsepower on the engine, so they will mention, if you see BHP, it's braking horsepower, they're talking about the engine. Other people will say, nah, it's 117, and other people will say 130. Well, to round it up, it's around 110 horsepower on the wheel, around. So if you want to compare things with other bikes, you have a number to kind of get your mind around. And this power also differentiates, that's another thing to mention, depending on your bike, on the quality of your bike, on the status of your bike, how good of a condition you have your bike to be in. you know, this power range might change. The torque on the bike is quite good, but don't expect something crazy. For a SuperSport bike, it's on the low side. In the general comparison, SuperSport bikes have torque, okay? It's an inline 4-cylinder engine. The torque is around 68, if I'm not mistaken, nanometers of torque. Nanometer pounds, whatever you want to call it. I don't remember the exact, but you can have a look at the specs online. One of the negative things that I will say about this bike is to consider is if you're going to drive it with 2 people on top, because the bike is kind of empty power, let's say, towards the beginning of the rev line. If you have a second person on the bike, at sometimes I was driving around with my woman and she was behind the back, starting off the light, it felt kind of like dead. So that's one thing to mention. I really hated taking a second person on the bike because it stresses the bike. Another thing to mention is the exhaust valve is supposed to give additional power on the low end range by actually closing the exhaust and therefore creating engine back pressure. So this is something that me taking the exhaust cables out, meaning that my exhaust valve on my bike is permanently on full position. In theory, I should have lost some power on the low end, and because this bike is very empty on the low end, in theory I should have felt this, but this was not the case. I did not feel any difference in the power on the low end. Not only that, but I actually felt like it was opening up much faster. Anyway, that is not here or there. The reason why I removed it is because I had an issue and I was not prepared to fix it. Another thing in my mind is, like I said, I do love the exhaust, but if I do change it, it will be for sound wise. So I thought to myself, if you are going to change it at some point, I've seen a lot of videos with people are like, how am I going to put a slip on? I have to delete the exhaust valve, I have to get like a servo motor, like a delete switch, and I got to put it up. Since the way that I removed it is just remove the cables, then it doesn't give me any errors, so I thought leave it as is. So if in the future I do want to put a slip on, mostly for the sound, for nothing else, even though this bike is very, very loud because of the rev range as well, it goes crazy. Like if I rev a little bit, okay, that was 9,000, so you can understand that it goes hectically loud. Another thing to mention about the other modification, actually I'll talk about the brake lines as well. So changing the brake lines to high pressure steel lines created a crazy difference in the feeling of the bike, meaning that it became much more sensitive when you press the brake. You can apply a lot more pressure to the brakes and a lot more controlled pressure. So that's the key point element here. The most important thing is that you're applying a lot more consistent. The reason why you're putting the high brake lines is not it's more for consistency rather than pressure. Yes, it will make a difference, like pressure wise also, but the biggest component is that as you're applying the brake, instead of having a plastic hose, which means that it's going to expand a little bit and then the brake is going to grab on the caliper and you're going to have a little bit of a delay on that, then there's no expansion. So it's like more direct. It's more a direct feeling, and you feel as if your fingers are controlling the brake without any delay, let's say. That's the difference. And as far as the gears go, the sprockets, whatever you want to call them, the gear ratio that I changed, -1 +2 at the back. I made a mistake on the last video. It's -1 +2. The feeling around that is much more acceleration, but you do lose a little bit of a top speed. Just to give you an understanding, we're on kilometers per hour. My bike used to go to around 260, 65, let's say 60, 260 kilometers per hour with the third gear and full revving. Now, third gear almost towards the red line, it's 240. So I've lost something like 20 kilometers on the top end. But this is something that I don't care, because I do like speed, it is awesome, but not as much as acceleration. For me, acceleration is more important. And the difference that it has made in accelerations is crazy. Coming off from a light and doing it like 100% acceleration before the gear change, the bike used to become light at the front, but was never able to lift. After the change, I have only tried 100% gas once, because it is scary. Basically, there was a guy and we were kind of racing with this guy. Not racing, yeah, kind of racing. Let me just stop here to talk a little bit more, because the trip to my work is not as much as I would like it to be. Therefore, I try to end it quite quickly. So let me just finish this. There's no way that I'm going to perfectly time it. So this is going to be the last topic that I'm going to discuss about the gears, just to give you an understanding. So what the feeling is, like I said, 100% of the gas, the power, I got used to it. After not driving for 6 years and coming back, yes, I have gotten unused to the power. But the power was, like I said, 100% of the gas, first gear, full acceleration. The front of the bike will kind of lift maybe 1 or 2 centimeters, and that's it. So it did not have the capability to wheelie straight away from the power, and I'm talking about leaning over your body, not trying to stay straight, and so full racing position. You used to be 100% on the gas, you used to rise 12,000, and that's where the bike kind of lifted, maybe not even lifted. Now I was racing this guy on the road. It was a good condition, the road was warm, because it is the very dangerous. As you're trying to apply so much acceleration, you don't know how the bike is going to behave. You might get your back wheel to spin out, therefore, and then grip again, which was going to create a huge problem for you. And it's going to apply a lot of acceleration suddenly. So there's a lot of factors that you got to be careful. I do not suggest anybody to try this unless you know what you're doing, and in any case, don't try this on the road. This is just talking about my private experiences. So I'm taking it, and since I've got the gear change, I've never opened it 100%. Why? Because it literally scares the shit out of me. My 70% on the gas now on first gear is like the 100% before. That's how much more power it gave me. So that's why I say a change like that is worth it. To pay $200 and put a dyno jet and dyno tune the bike and go from 110 horsepower to 118, Klein mine. For me, it's not worth it. It's too much money. I paid 280 euros for the sprockets and the chain, but that was something that I had to do anyway. The chain was destroyed, the old one, so it was a repair. How much more did I pay? Nothing. The same price that I would have paid for a good quality chain and 2 gears from the back was the same thing that I paid. The only thing that I did is I changed the gear ratios. So I literally paid nothing extra for this kind of modification. So I don't know if people are aware of it, but I would really suggest it. And we'll make another video, because we're running out of time, and I'm not going to sit here all this time and talk about this. I will make another video and I will talk about this, and we'll go more into the comparison between 1,000 liter bikes and 600 bikes. These are my thoughts. But just to finish up the story, I was racing this guy. I've got 70% on the gas. We're driving down the straight, first gear. We're around 70-80 kilometers an hour, and I see the guy leave, and in my mind I know that I was not the wisest thing. I thought to myself, fuck it, just open it. Fuck it, just open it. Not suddenly, but kind of quickly. So from 70 I went 89, 100. Just a quick turn. He was around a car length in front of me. As I did that, the bike hectically accelerated. It lifted the front wheel around half a meter, talking about 50 centimeters now, off the ground. It was like a good 30-degree rise. I passed him as I'm doing a wheelie. The guy thought, what the hell? I was by no means doing it on purpose, by the way, but it turned out to my, good for me. And I thought to myself, close the gas, you might flip the bike because it is scary. But I thought, hold on to it because I see that it slows down, and then I just kept holding it to it, and then it gently went down again. It was the most beautiful acceleration that I've done in my life, without me actually wanting or trying to do it. The bike lifted around 30 degrees and it dropped down sweetly. There was no tank wobble, there was nothing. And I passed the guy with a wheelie, and he got pissed off later on. He started going fast. I stopped. There's no point. So that's just to give you an understanding of the comparison. The bike becomes more aggressive, nervous, and everything when you've got this change. So let's end the video for now. I don't want to sit here for all this time. My back fan is kicking in also. It's warming up, so it's no good. Okay, everybody, goodbye. Have a great, awesome day, and we'll talk soon.